Hi, everyone. Aaron here for Zolotech, and there's a lot to talk about this week with the latest Apple news. We're hearing more about iOS 27, and also we're waiting for iOS 26.2 and much more. This is your weekly Apple News update for the week of November 24th, 2025. Now, there's been a lot of news around when Tim Cook could retire as CEO of Apple, and this week in the Power On newsletter, Mark Gurman has said that he'd be shocked if Tim Cook stepped down this year, and that there's been few signs internally that Tim Cook is planning to retire just yet. Now, it's possible he could retire in 2026 later on, but so far it looks like some of that news either may or may not be accurate, or we'll have to wait and see. Either way, it looks like Apple may be planning a future transition, as it would be smart for them to do so, but either way, we have no specific date or when to expect that retirement. In the weekend follow up video, I showed how the Google Pixel 10 series devices can natively airdrop to Apple devices. However, we have yet to hear from Apple about it, but they may decide to actually push an update that stops it altogether, or they could just let it go. Either way, this puts Apple in a hard spot, as if they do stop it with an update, Apple could actually face more charges, which would eventually force it anyway. So, what do you think about this overall change? It's something I really appreciate, as I typically airdrop every day from my iPhone to Mac and other devices. So, to have it on Android as well, just as sort of an open, seamless way to transfer information would be great. There are third-party apps that allow it, but either way, I love to have AirDrop on all devices. Now, also this week, someone figured out how to unlock AirPods features on Android phones. There's some open source code here on GitHub where you can install it on Android, and it gives you different compatibility with AirPods with features you don't typically get with AirPods on Android devices. They function normally with just Bluetooth overall, but now you can actually use it with ear detection, battery status, head gestures, conversational awareness, hearing aid modes, customized transparency modes, with, of course, a few caveats where they may not be everywhere. But overall, it's great to have all those options on additional platforms as well, as AirPods are great. And if you want to use Android, AirPods should have all the functionality there as well. But again, let me know what you think of that in the comments below. Now, before we continue, I just wanted to mention one thing. You may notice I sound a little bit different, and that's because I'm on vacation this week. So it may sound a little bit different for this week, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm actually taking a little bit of a vacation, but recording at the same time. Now, the Hikawa phone grip I recently shared a video about is sold out on Apple's website, but now Hikawa has more colors available for pre-order on their website. If we go to their website, you'll see here, we'll get rid of that, and you'll see it says sold out, but we have adaptive grips and different options. So this is for accessibility users. It's not something Apple typically made, but they sort of partnered with it for 40 years of accessibility at Apple. I think it's great for accessibility users and really helps them grip onto their phone. It's not meant to be a case or anything like that. It just locks into MagSafe and allows people to use it on the go that may have a difficulty gripping the phone typically, as it's slippery and sort of a limited form factor for those that may need it. So it's great to see this, but let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Now, I mentioned in the weekend follow up that they announced App Store finalists winning App of the Year, along with Podcasts of the Year, but they also announced Apple Music Artist of the Year. You can see it on Apple Newsroom's website, where it says Tyler, the Creator, is Apple's Music Artist of the Year for 2025. So that's on their Newsroom website. And along with this, they also launched a new playlist. So if you go into New in Apple Music, you'll see Best of 2025 for different genres. So today's hits, R&B, new Best of 2025, and much more. So those are available on Apple Music now. Now, it seems many people are unhappy with the latest update with watchOS 26 and the way Workouts functions as a whole. Many people just don't like the interface or the overall functionality. They complain about things such as touch targets and more. Now, personally, I don't mind it now that I've gotten used to it, but there's a long thread on Reddit with complaints about everything from design to placement of commonly used features, and ultimately many say it just wasn't as good as the previous update. Now, like I said, I haven't had an issue with this, but let me know what you think of it in the comments below if you're using it for maybe advanced workouts or something else and you just find it not to be as functional. There is a new never-before-seen interview with Steve Jobs on the Steve Jobs Archive website. You'll see here it says Pixar, the early days, and if you weren't aware, Steve Jobs was very important in helping overall Pixar and Toy Story release many years ago. So for its 30th anniversary, it says we're sharing a never-before-seen interview with Steve from November 22nd, 1996. Exactly 1 year after the film debuted in theaters. So I'll link this in the description if you want to check it out yourself and read the article and then play the video as well. Now, it seems there's been some issues recently with BOE displays provided to Apple for iPhone 17 Pro models. According to ZDNet Korea, Apple has given a planned allocation of displays originally intended for BOE in China to Samsung. This is due to reliability issues they just couldn't solve, it seems. So it looks like if you were having issues with your display, maybe it was due to BOE or maybe just Samsung overall was what they went with early on because there were some issues. I haven't had any issues. I know some people in the latest updates are seeing some display artifacts and other things, but let me know if you've had issues with your iPhone 17 Pro or 17 Pro Max display. Now, Apple announced that the M5 Apple Vision Pro is coming to 2 more countries and it's available for pre order right now. You can see it here on their website, so I'll have to translate it here. You'll see it's translated, but it's not doing a great job. But overall, it's going to be available on November 28th in South Korea and Taiwan. So again, those pre-orders are available now if you want to pick one up. If we go into Apple Wallet, if you go to add a card in Apple Wallet, you'll see that you have pay later options for Affirm and Klarna. However, Klarna has launched in 3 more countries: Denmark, Spain, and Sweden, and soon it will be in France to allow you to pay later using Klarna. So if you want to do that, it should be available, and it says flexible pay later options, pay over time with our flexible payment plans. Checking your eligibility has no credit impact. So you can continue, try it out if you want, and it's available now in many countries. Apple today released a new ad on their YouTube channel. You'll see Apple's YouTube channel where it says iPhone 17 Pro, A19 Pro chip, peak performance. It's about the overall vapor chamber, keeping things cool so it performs like you would expect. So this is great. They're really pushing that, and hopefully we see not only vapor chambers, but maybe some changes in the future with cooling to help even more. As far as apps this week, ChatGPT has launched all new group chats. You can see it on their website here. There's a video about it, and it says update on November 20th. Early feedback from the pilot has been positive, so we're expanding group chats to all logged in users on ChatGPT free, Go, Plus, and Pro plans globally. So you should have this available. If you don't already, it should be coming very soon everywhere around the world. Also, their new Atlas browser received a big update this past week, adding passkey support, a vertical tab option, and some settings updates as well. TikTok this past week is also helping you limit content that was created by AI. You can see it here on their post where it says shaping how much AI generated content you see. It says in the coming weeks, we'll start testing a new AI generated content control in our managed topics feature to empower people to choose how much AI generated content they want to see in their For You feeds. So this is great. If you don't want to see that, it will help differentiate that and help you see either AI content, regular content, or both. When it comes to weekly Apple deals, well, Black Friday is not too far away, and there's quite a few great deals. The first thing has to do with Apple TV. Now that it's no longer Apple TV Plus, you'll see here on the home screen that we now have the option, if you haven't subscribed already, for $5.99 per month for the first 6 months. So if you've been wanting to try out Apple TV, you can do that here. Also, AirPods Pro 3 have a discount as well, down to $219.99, so it seems to be the best discount we've seen so far. Also, the iPad 11-inch is $279, MacBook Air M4 is starting at $749, which is a great deal, and the Series 10 Apple Watch is starting at $279, and there's deals on the Apple Series 11 as well. There's also additional deals on AirPods 4, 4 packs of AirTags, and much more. I'll link them in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. Now, many have been asking me, when can we expect iOS 26.2 Beta 4 or iOS 26.2 RC or release candidate? Well, based on what we've had in the past, typically we'll see it next week. Apple usually skips the Thanksgiving week as it's Thanksgiving on Thursday in the United States, and they even made a note in their feedback app. If we go into feedback, you'll see there's a note about Thanksgiving break, so if you're a developer or public beta tester, you should see this. It says Thanksgiving break. Please note that our team will not be processing feedback during our Thanksgiving break, November 22nd through November 30th. Please continue to submit your feedback. We will process new feedback and respond to any inquiries when we return to the office on December 1st. So it's unlikely we see an update this week. It's possible, but I highly doubt it. Also, we could see an iOS 26.1.1, but now that we're so close to iOS 26.2, it seems likely that we would have Beta 4, the release candidate, as soon as next week, and then maybe a public release on the 8th or the 9th. It just depends on what they release next. If there's an RC on December 1st or 2nd, expect the public release on December 8th. If not, it would be the following week. As far as anything else, well, iOS 26.3 Beta 1 is expected a couple days after that release. That's typically what Apple does every year. They take the holiday off, and typically they return sometime in the second or third week of January. So it just depends on the schedule each year, but typically I would expect it on December 5th or 2nd. Now, when it comes to the next version of iOS, iOS 27, just like every year, we're starting to hear more and more about the next version of iOS and what could be included. This time, it seems iOS 27 will be mostly just a stability update, according to Mark Gurman. He said it'll focus on quality and underlying performance. Now, he's mentioned this about iOS 26, or what we thought was going to be iOS 19, but this time he specifically says Apple plans to make it similar to years ago when Apple worked on Leopard with the Mac and then stability and called it Snow Leopard. So we saw a year break where Apple really focused on stability, added very few features, and just made it a really good overall experience. Got rid of issues like lag, just underlying bugs, refined the code, and made it much, much better. So hopefully it's true this year. However, he does expect them to add a few extra things such as AI features. It's been lacking as far as Apple Intelligence. We've seen more and more of it, but so far we haven't seen the updated Siri, which we do expect sometime around March, maybe with iOS 26.4, but we could expect maybe a few additional features as well. Other than that, I would expect maybe refinements. It could be changes to liquid glass, just smoothness, animations, and more. So hopefully it's not only with the latest phones, but older phones as well. Now, last year, Apple released the iPhone 16e, and usually they take a break. They have an SE, they'll take a few years break, but it seems this year, iPhone 17e is expected as well. According to analyst Jeff Poo, he expects it in early next year or around spring, and he's also said that he believes the 17e will use the A19 CPU along with an 18 megapixel center stage camera and the C1 modem. We also could see more from the 17E moving to the dynamic island instead of just the notch, so we could expect updates like that. But again, there's no confirmation of this, but it does seem likely. Now, Apple is expected to be working on an iPhone Fold still. We expect the Fold to basically be two iPhone Airs together, maybe with cameras on one side, the other screen on the other, of course, and we expect it to be around $2,000. However, recent information suggests it could be much more expensive, according to Fubon Research. Basically, based on supply chain costs and overall profitability, Apple could make this at $23.99. Now, typical Samsung folding devices are quite expensive as well, and I wouldn't expect any difference here, but $23.99 maybe for the base model, or maybe that's with a terabyte or 2 terabytes of storage. We just don't know yet. But I would expect something like that and probably quite expensive, at least $2,000. Now, every year, Apple releases a lower priced iPad, and we expect the same thing this year with a 12th generation iPad. There's no major design changes expected, but it is expected to use the A18 CPU and allow for Apple Intelligence. Why they didn't do that last year, I'm not sure, but at least this year you'll be able to utilize Apple Intelligence, and it will probably have more RAM if it can use Apple Intelligence. So maybe 8 to 12 gigs of RAM, along with maybe minor upgrades. But we should see that, and it's usually pretty inexpensive and is expected to launch sometime in the spring, maybe around March. We've been hearing a lot about a low-cost MacBook. So we have expensive MacBooks, but really most things are about $1,000. So we've been hearing a lot about this, but it seems early 2026 may finally see the release of that low-cost MacBook. This is according to analyst Jeff Poo. He said Apple plans to launch the MacBook in the spring of 2026, which is said to feature an A18 CPU and will likely be priced anywhere between $699 to $899. I think $699 makes more sense depending on the overall storage and RAM, but I would love to see that maybe for an entry-level model. But again, you could just buy a used MacBook that's quite a good discount right now. So we'll have to wait and see what it includes. If it has a lower end screen or lower end speakers and this just isn't very good compared to the Air, most people should probably just get last year's MacBook Air model for a discounted price. So we'll have to wait and see what Apple does with that. So that's everything this week for the latest Apple news. Let me know what you're looking most forward to. I'm looking forward to the release of iOS 26.2 and to see what Apple has for iOS 27 if it really is stability next year at WWDC in June. So again, let me know what you're looking forward to. I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.